Welcome back, everybody. We're excited to be joined today by Dave Valentine. Now, Dave has a track record of owning 10 businesses that have collectively generated over $1 billion. That's a billion with a B, for more than 1,200 clients, including Fortune 100 companies like Target, Time Magazine, and American Express. Dave brings a lot of experience here to the table. But at 29, a stark warning from his doctor became Dave's wake up call. This pivotal moment shaped his mission, helping business owners scale quickly without sacrificing health and well being. Dave now sits as CRO of a global powerhouse agency and helps businesses scale from the mountains in a house by a river with 3 waterfalls. Merging conscious capitalism with an unconventional marketing approach, Dave forges a path for holistic growth in business and in life. Dave, thanks so much for being here with us in the studio today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's good here. So just first for you, I'm curious. This house, what state are you in? Where are you calling in from? I got 3 waterfalls by the river.
Yeah, so if you fly into Portland, Oregon, and then you drive about an hour east-northeast towards the Cascades,
okay,
you arrive at my house, and I'm currently looking at the river where the salmon spawn about 30 feet off my back deck, and
nice.
I've seen the bald eagles flying up and down a few times. So I
Love
live
it.
in the middle of nowhere, and my mailing address is associated with a town that is quite literally 8.5 miles away. It's a pristine wilderness. It does not suck.
That's fantastic.
Have you ever had any close calls living that close to the river?
What do you mean by close calls living by the river?
Life or death type of thing?
Yeah. Like our first rental was literally like 3 feet from this big river. So
Nice.
when the storms would come, they would come up almost all the way up to the house. I remember
Mhm.
there was this one time where it looks like a raging sea, and we were like thinking maybe we should get out of here. Like this is a tiny little, this is a 50s built in the 60s little condo. You'd never be able to get permits to be able to build it that close. But but um we ended up surviving. It was a good place, but
Yeah, cool. Well, I have not had trouble with the water so much, Eric. Like we actually sit like high up on the embankment, so it's
I hear
like
you.
50 feet down to get to the river, to get to the bottom of the steps rather. And then you have to walk further down. So we have gotten close where like it's the right temperature. We get like dumped with snow in the mountains that are right here,
Mm.
and they're several, thousands of feet higher than we are. And then what'll happen is we'll have a temperature inversion and it'll keep raining. Pacific Northwest, right? Like we live literally in a rainforest. So when that happens, we've had it be where the water gets really close to the bottom foot of the deck, but it's never gotten to the wood. So like there have been a couple
That's
times
the
where I'm like,
record.
oh man, am I gonna have to wake up at like 3 a.m. and just take a chainsaw out there and be like and cut it
Wow.
out, or like it's nuts.
Jeez.
Outside of that, though, because we live in the wild and we're by a water source, I do have some pretty interesting encounters with mountain lion.
Okay.
Really?
Then, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
earlier this year, I like was walking out the front yard, and we have a friend who she was staying with us, and she was just walking around the yard, but it was like night, it was dusk, but it was like 7 o'clock, right? And she goes, I just feel like something's watching me. So I went out with the spotlight, and sure enough, like 80 yards away, there's a mountain lion up on the hill towards the front yard that's just been watching her. And I was like,
Dang.
watch this.
Wow.
And so I like turned around, took 4 paces, and then flipped back around. And that thing had come within 20 yards of me, like scaled down the hill. And I spotlit it and it
Wow.
like froze. And then it ran back up the hill. And anyways, our friend, she was like, I'm going to go back inside.
That's awesome.
That's a good
That's so
idea.
great.
So those are kind of the hairy interactions that we have out here.
That's fantastic. That's good stuff. That's a lot of good adventures to be had. So I feel like there might be a few things you could speak to on this. Give me a surprising fact about you, Dave, that most people, maybe very, very few people, would know about. Something that would surprise people to learn about you.
Gosh, something that would surprise people. Man, I I was a military brat. Like my dad, his joke was every time that he got stationed somewhere, they were going to shut down the base or they're going to shut down the squadron. So by the time I graduated high school, I lived in 15 different houses in 13 different cities in
Jeez.
18
Wow.
years. And so, man, like we never did anything international. Everything was stateside.
Okay.
So I had to learn how to make friends really, really fast. I think the other thing that most people don't know is that like when I was 3, I started my entrepreneurial journey, and I
Okay.
like kept doing entrepreneurial things. Like I would sell candy bars and pens and pencils and erasers out of my backpack in like 4th grade,
Nice.
like there's just always this hunger to, hey, what can I do that would not just make money, but that would actually improve the lives of the people around me and that would be meaningful to them. And so, kind of understanding a lot of times people would show up to class and they would lack like
Mm,
essential tools. So like
Sure.
I just started carrying that with me, and I had kind of a drug dealer model where I was like, hey, I'll give you the first one for free.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time. I was 10, but
It was just
in
intrinsically, it just
hindsight,
worked.
yeah.
that was good. That's good.
That's awesome. That's pretty great. So when you were selling, did you also like develop a distribution model? Like, were you able to recruit people to like also
Yeah.
sell at a rate? Like, because that's the first step you mentioned was drug dealing, and there's like, not that I've done this personally, but I've heard people, that's kind of the model that follows. So distribution secondarily.
Yeah, so I actually did recruit some friends who I was like, "Hey, I'll give you 10 cents for every candy bar that you sell out of your
Okay.
backpack."
Yep.
And that was
Yep.
how we kind of grew that, but they didn't sell pens and pencils because the margin on that was pretty slim. And the
For
candy
sure.
bars I would get for a quarter, and then we'd sell them for
Yeah.
50 cents, and that was like
Yep.
we could sell that for days, and people were just
For sure.
amazed. And then I had other classmates that were like, "Oh, I want to start doing that." And so then we had to deal
Yeah.
with competition and who had the
Competition,
cream
man.
and
Mhm.
stuff. And yeah, it was fun.
So here's another random question for you. What's your least favorite TV show and why?
Least favorite TV show, dude. So it's got to be a TV show that I've watched and that I didn't like.
Probably didn't finish.
Man, yeah, dang, dude. I'll tell you the one that was really rough for season 1 because I'm trying to think of one, and this is the closest I've got.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
I
Go for
was
it.
I was really amped for Rings of Power on Amazon. They had spent $1 billion on like 8 episodes,
Right.
and the first season was so bad. Like the
Mm,
acting was bad, the writing was bad, the plot was weird. Everything about it was so discombobulated for such a big production that,
yeah.
I mean, like you have high expectations of Lord of the Rings and Star, like some of these franchises that we all are like, they should do well. And then I'd also say too, there are a number of the Star Wars like TV shows that are just
For sure. Yeah.
so horribly
So good.
disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like Andor's great, but like I don't know, even the
That's the
Obi-Wan.
one I haven't seen.
Eric, bro, it's Star Wars for grown-ups. Like I highly
Oh, it's
recommend it. And
good?
season 2
Okay.
is gonna, dude, the best. Like by far
Okay.
the best.
I was already so burnt out that I was like, oh, I don't want to start another one. You know what I mean?
They were all so bad. It's like, what's Andor?
Dude, no. Oh,
Exactly.
so Andor's legitimately great. You're both going to
Okay.
enjoy it if you haven't seen it.
Good to know.
Okay.
I haven't seen any of the Star Wars. So it's funny because like I give people a lot of grief for this. I didn't grow up watching the original Star Wars films, so I
What?
saw them like as
I
a
know,
young
that's what I
adult.
said.
No. So when I saw them as a young adult, I was like, "This is garbage, guys! Like, why are you guys watching
Wait,
this?"
word, dude.
So I've like never been a fan. And then I watched them basically right about the same time that they started doing all the remakes, right? A few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, well, the new ones are like way better in like production value. So like I don't really care either way. And like these ones they just flow better. So nobody likes my opinion on Star Wars. So I've never really fit in with a good crowd on that front. So not a huge Star Wars guy, but but at your recommendation, I might check out Andor. Do I need like to appreciate, for context sake, the what's gone on before, or is it a good standalone show in
I
its
think
own
it's a
right.
good standalone. I mean, did you guys watch Rogue One, that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So Andor is like the precursor to Rogue One. So it's all about how
Okay.
Cassian Andor becomes like a rebel spy. And the reason why I love it is it really depicts why the Empire was really bad. Like what they did to the people at the ground level.
Yeah, that tracks like something I'd really be into.
I think
I
you dig it.
appreciate that little teaser trailer. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
I try. It's the little things.
All right, man. So let's hop into it. I have a lot of things I'd love to ask you. I'm sure Eric's got some questions. I'd like to tell you
I've got some
tell us
marketing
kind of
questions.
you got some market. Yeah. So Eric actually has done some stuff in e-commerce, which is kind of
Oh,
what
sick.
you're doing with Finch, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll get into some of the weeds on that as well. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about what kind of inspired you. You said you started at how old? 3?
Yeah.
How old were you when you? Yeah, okay, I thought you said 3.
Yeah.
So you had an entrepreneurial bug pretty young, right?
Yeah.
But maybe getting into like I don't want to say serious, but like the more like income producing businesses down the road into like early adulthood or whenever that happened, high school, whatever. What was the inspiration to that? Was it just wanting to be in control, developing your own systems? What kind of gave you that entrepreneurial bug just to start off with, and then getting to the point where you were doing what was like 10 businesses, right? That over the span of this, your experience, what got you excited about getting into entrepreneurship, and what was the process like as you were going through different iterations?
Yeah. So when I was born to a teenage mother and a young 20-something's father, I was actually in their wedding a year after I was born. So that's exciting. And the thing that my dad was doing at the time before he joined the Air Force was he'd started his own landscaping company. And I was too young to really know about that. But like I remember my dad being very entrepreneurial. And so he sold that landscaping company before he graduated for I think it was $32,000, and this was like the '80s, so that was a good chunk of change, especially for about to be a college grad. That wasn't bad at all. And
Yeah.
my dad just kind of put it to me like, "Hey, you can do this. Like starting a business isn't hard." And even though my dad actually loves the structure of not running businesses, like that's all that he knows because he's been in the Air Force and then now he's flying for American Airlines. So like he loves structure and thrives there, and I thrive in some of the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And I really kind of knew instinctively that that was a path that I could take if I wanted to. That being coupled with, I started an internship when I was 18, my senior year. I have that weird like late summer birthday, where it's like the weird cutoff. So I started kindergarten later, which is great because I'm 5'8", so I'm not like a tall human. So that gave me a leg up whenever it came to like just growing a little bit more, playing
Uh-huh.
football, soccer, weightlifting, all the things. So, anyways, I started an internship when I was 18, running digital marketing stuff for people. And my mentor at the time was this guy that was just an expert communicator. I mean, very, very gifted. I think he's probably 14, 15 years older than me. And one of the things that he really was establishing with me was, hey, I want you to be able to go run a department on your own. I want you to be able to go start your own thing if you ever wanted to. And it was internally marketing, right? So I wasn't in an agency, I was an internal brand.
Yeah.
And that
Great.
really allowed me to establish, like, he was so good with me as an intern for 3 years, just going, hey, go lead this. I want you to lead this meeting. I want you to pull in these partners. I want you to develop a team. And so, like, I started pulling people in to help market this thing and to really make it work. So, in all of those experiences, I was really able to garner a sense for how to develop staff, how to teach them and train them where we want them to go. What are the objectives? How do we communicate those objectives to a small group of people of like 4? How do we communicate that to a group of 60? And I'm communicating to the CEO as an intern when I'm 19, 20 years old about here's what we're doing in marketing, here's our game plan. And I've just got the backing of the guy who's my supervisor, right? And he's just like sitting in the back going, go, Dave, go. And so
Yeah.
there was this
Wow.
real feeling from him of, hey, man, I want you to be great. And so that investment in me was just, it was really, really helpful between my parents and Kevin was that mentor's name. Really looking at it at the age of 24, I was working for a major pharmaceutical company. I was consulting on their marketing department, and their CMO was an old school guy and didn't know anything about digital. So they wrote me in, they say,
Wow.
hey, can you handle the digital marketing agencies? I'm like, sure. So I start talking with the agencies. There's 4 of them. And I started asking them for reports and what are we doing? And, we're like 2 months, I'm 2 months into it. I'm like, they have no clue what they're doing because they're all big
Wow.
firms. Because it was a big, $500 million a year company, like so big that they
Sure.
sold pieces of themselves to Walgreens. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
real. But I'm reporting to the CMO about how the digital marketing is going at 24 years old. The agencies have no idea what they're doing. And I'm like, I could just do this. So I called a buddy of mine who was in digital. He was a digital designer. I was like, hey, man, do you want to start an agency? And he goes, sure. We had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know how to get clients. But we knew digital marketing and we knew design. And so we were like, let's just go for it. And that's how we got started. When I was 25, we launched the first company, and it was an agency that provided digital advertising and digital marketing solutions.
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got going.
So you really had a pretty cool experience being able to, in some ways test all of this from an internal team and develop, and you had all the support behind you where someone's like, here, you have some talent. I want you to just like really develop this. And so were you're building the teams like as you went along as well, and like you had oversight even on bringing people on for that and managing those. I mean, it seems like at such a young age for something to start out
Hmm.
like that, that's a pretty ideal scenario. And to uncover that kind of talent that was already something you were good at.
Yeah, I
Oh.
think there's some people in the world that can really identify when there's
Mm.
somebody that's really talented. Like you can just see it in a
Yeah,
I'm going to call it a kid, right? Because I feel like I was a kid, right? Like I was
sure.
still figuring out life, very much so. And when someone can go, hey, you're 18 and I see you, you've got talent, you've got
Mm.
ability, and then they instill belief in you, even though you already have some because you're young and stupid and you don't know any better. So there's like some false confidence in that. But for someone else to be like, look, you're not there. The raw
Yeah,
talent is. Let's figure
yeah.
out how to develop that. And
Hmm.
one of the things I've really taken that same approach that Kevin took with me with other people. My current right hand in the organization is somebody who has worked. She and I have known each other for 7.5, 8 years now. We've worked. This is our third organization working together. And when she came to me, she was the admin assistant for the psychology department, making 28 grand a year. She had no marketing experience, no marketing background, and she's one of the most highly compensated individuals at the firm because she's massively talented. She went from making 28 grand a year 7 years ago, or 8 years ago, somewhere in there, to she's making well over 200,000 at this point. And so
Hmm.
it's one of those things where you can find these people and then invest in them, and in return, they invest back in your organizations. And so that's one of my big things that I love to find are younger people that are hungry
Yeah.
and that have some raw talent and ability, and you shape and mold that in a way that really is beneficial for them and hopefully for the future of organizations.
So are you still running the studio, the agency now, or did you sell it?
I sold it. So yeah, I had back in 2023, we had a portfolio of 8 firms, and over the course, some we sold together, some were kind of picked apart. But over the course of 2023, we essentially sold all 8 of those firms.
What was
And
what was like the reasoning behind that? Just curious. Was it
the
just like I'm
selling, or
tired, or yeah, the selling?
yeah, so quick genesis of how that kind of all went down. So I had the first agency, built that up over time, sold it in 2019, took the funds from the sale, and immediately started a new firm. By the way, highly recommend you don't do that. And so then we kind of took the proceeds from that and started building out the other firms. Purchased some marketing technology. We purchased a PR firm. We started a design agency once my non-compete ran out. I started a flight school with my brother. I started the private equity firm to kind of like house all of these brands now, and created a new level of operations above every single organization to oversee what was going on. And so what I did was I created systems and processes that allowed me to spend as little as 2 hours a week on a brand. And when they were doing well, no more than 4 hours a week on them. The thing that I quickly found out was there would always be a brand that needed, or two, when you have that many, that needed a lot of extra love. They need a lot of extra big brain Dave time. And so it just got to the point where the people at the organizations, because I had acquired them so quickly or I had launched them so rapidly, they weren't ready for me to be hands off as much as I wanted to be. And it was just like, man, this isn't working for my quality of life anymore, and started to move to sell them. And so was able to make some really good exits for myself, for some other people that were owners and founders as well. And, that kind of, I took 2024 off. I just did some consulting part-time. It was awesome, and ended up doing some consulting with Finch. And what that led to was at the end of last year, they just came to me and they're like, hey, we need you. What would it look like for you to be here full time? How could we structure some ownership? And so I'm a co-owner at Finch and helping them really drive forward with new business development and working to help their existing clients as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is interesting. You talked about the systems and stuff that you built in so you could kind of, in some ways, I don't want to say autopilot because nothing's ever truly autopilot, but you could recognize at least the firms that you didn't need all of your energy in all the time, right? And you talked about the ones that did require more of you. Those were a little bit more problematic. When I'm looking at somebody that's done what you've done with as many, you've got 1,200 different clients, you've got $1 billion of revenue to create. Like these are big numbers. Like this is not chump change. What was the systems, that model of identifying and placing systems above each of those, was that the primary driver, you think, of your success and being able to move as quickly as you did with so many? Were there other aspects, I guess, like secret sauce things that you were doing to accomplish that? What did that look like in terms of maybe other strategies that were involved in doing as much as you did?
Yeah, so it was all systems driven. When I was in my first business, I resisted systems because I thought those to be restrictive to creativity,
Okay.
and restrictive to people being nimble in the organization, because that had been my experience. It was only when I really became acquainted with EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, that everything shifted for me. And I became acquainted with that and really started to execute on that in 2017. And that was when I had the conversation with my doc where he was like, hey, we've tested 4,500 people, and you're the most stressed out person we've ever tested. So, like, if you don't change your behavior, you're not going to see 40. And I had some staff that were around in 2018 and then kind of saw the transition happen through 2019 into 2020, 2021. And they kind of have this really fun description. They're like, I took them with me when I exited from one company and brought them to the new one. It's part of the agreement. And so when they talked about it, they're like, yeah, there was the Dave that we knew when we first started working here. We call him Madman Dave. And then there's the post experience, which we call Mountain Hippie Dave. Hence the long hair, living up in the mountains. Yeah. So there's a different level of confidence, of assurity, and of certainty of action when you're implementing EOS that allows everybody to be on the same page at the same time. And not one person has to be the hero. Everyone can kind of look at it together and go, here's how we move forward. In addition to that, I just came up with simple frameworks that allowed us to create great offers that made it impossible for people to say no to working with us before Alex Hormozy wrote his great book about that.
I was just going to ask if this is like.
So we were doing foot in the door offers that were really fun and exciting. We were using podcasts as a mean for interacting with brands that we really wanted to work with on an agency side, but knew that we were going to have a hard time getting that conversation going any other way. And then we'd invite them into a studio and we'd have a great conversation. And so we just made it this thing where marketing and sales was the thing, that we really, really focused on. And that allowed us to scale along with solid operations, meant that we delivered really high quality for our clients. And that led to the success we've been able to sustain.
It's interesting what you say there about like you were initially in your first company resistant to systems because of the creativity conflict or that idea of like, well, this is going to run counter to being able to be creative. I've always been fascinated by that because I think most of the entrepreneurs I know, they seem to be like super creative individuals. I am not creative at all. I never have been. Like I just don't have that, thing in me whatsoever. But I'm a big systems guy. And so for me, I love systems because, like, man, if I can find a system that works and implement it, it's like I just want to duplicate that all day, every day. That's like my bread and butter. So I love DOS, I love all that and whatnot. And so it is interesting because it seems like more often than not, a lot of the entrepreneurs and any successful entrepreneurs, they generally are creative. Like that psychology, that personality seems to be a trait with a good chunk of entrepreneurs. So it's interesting when you can kind of find that marriage between like, yes, creativity is good. I'm definitely creative, but also I understand the value of having systems and knowing how to implement those in a way that is provides some predictability, right, for what you're doing and how you're executing.
Yeah, I think there are certain people that need certain levels of guardrails, right? And so what I
Hmm.
came to realize was, yeah, it's probably appropriate for me to have very few limitations on my time and on my days. And
Hmm.
that's fine because I'm always in motion. So, like, I'm going to get more done in a day than most staff members can accomplish in a week or two. So, Dave having free reign is cool.
Yep.
That being said, let's have operational framework where I do play in, an operational framework where everybody else plays in. And I'm out of the fray so that I can continue to be dangerous in my spots. And that just because we have operational systems for the firm doesn't mean that I need to adhere to them in the exact same ways that everybody else does.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Tell.
that's probably one of my bigger issues would be having as high expectations for my team that
Hmm.
I would place on myself. Because going back to what you said, you 100%, if you know what you're doing and you have all that free time because you're the one who's in it, whereas like your employees, they want, they might be passionate about it, but they still want life balance and all of that.
Totally.
Whereas, entrepreneurs don't have much of a life balance. You have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
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 On that balance, talked about 29. Your doctor says, "Hey, your stress is through the roof." I'm curious, was that something that this watershed moment, I guess, for you specifically? Was that stress something that you constantly felt like? Were you just under this burden of stress all the way up to that, and somebody was like, "Hey, by the way, it's gonna like take you out," or were you sort of just operating, with insane hours and not even really noticing it until somebody was on the outside, like, "Hey, this is bad, and you need to make a change."
Well, also on a personal question, because my wife tells me I'm stressed out all the time, and I don't feel
This
like
is
I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
So how do they even
that's what
measure
I'm getting
that for
behind.
you?
Yes, yes, yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
I felt it, sure, because it's, the way that our my family life was going. My wife wasn't working. I was the sole breadwinner, and we had in 2017 we had two kiddos that were young, like under 3, I guess
Hmm.
under 4. And it's a lot. And we had
Yes,
two
it
big
is. I
dogs.
agree.
And so I think that there's a lot of life stress in general. The other thing too was I hadn't figured out how to operationalize anything. Like we were doing over $1 million a year. I was making good enough money to live on. It wasn't gangbusters, but it was good enough that we could pay bills. Like things were fine. And I was hustling for every dollar. Like
Mm.
working so hard. I would network to pretty much every sale because so much of what I was struggling with was operationalizing sales, marketing, and the business overall. So everything really relied on me. I had this mentality of, well, I don't know everything. Like, because I'd gotten old enough at 29 where I was like, I know that I don't know everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
going to outwork everybody, right? And that was like my mentality. No one can outwork me. There's part of that I didn't realize how stressed out I was. there's part of that where I did realize how stressed out I was. An example, my day would flow something like drink coffee to keep going. At some point in the late afternoon, switch to beer so that I can calm myself down and go to sleep. Try to. Right? So
Great.
like I had to start simple things that year where I was just like, hey, where we're going to start at is you drink a glass of water a day. Because I started to realize after my doc told me that there were days where I never drank water. Insanity, I know.
Yikes.
But true. And then I needed to go walk around outside for 5 minutes. Like low bars to success.
Sure.
Now, most days I drink 4 or 5 glasses of water because I was thinking about it. Right? Most days I would do a 45-minute walk or a jog or whatever. But there would be days where I'm like, oh shit, it's 10:30 and I have had half a glass of water and I haven't gone for a walk. So I go do a 5-minute walk around the block and then I pound some water and go to sleep. So there were things that were definitely signs for sure.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you both, when I took some time off in 24 and just did the part-time consulting thing because it was fun and I made some money and it was cool. The amount of, oh wow, like it's a 4-hour workday and I've got time and space to just go walk in the yard.
Yeah,
I
you have all this free time.
Hike.
Yeah.
And
what do I do with myself?
I started writing a book. I started finding new things to add in because took enough time that I was like, okay, I'm good. I get it again. Relax, enjoy it all. Nothing's a big deal, and then go from there.
Yeah, I hear you on the water thing. I had to download a water app that would remind me to drink water throughout the day.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And it would track it, which was cool.
That's fantastic. Got like a little log for
But yeah,
the water.
then at the end of the night, I would do the same thing. I would drink like 3 or 4 beers and then pass out and then wake up again after I take a sleeping pill and then wake up at 10.
Brutal.
That was in earlier days though, without kids. I can't really do that with kids.
Yeah, I get it, man.
What are you, I'm curious. So you've had this moment, right? Where this epiphany of understanding how you've got to structure your life better and have better balance. But when you're talking to people and admonishing entrepreneurs like ourselves that are busy and that we are maybe running the candle at both ends and it's intense. Are you starting just like with those low bar things like, hey, I know you feel like you can't just stop everything right now, but drink 3 glasses of water a day, walk outside for a couple minutes. Is that kind of what you're helping people with initially? How are you helping people get to that point of, one, realizing they need to establish some balance and how to implement that?
Yeah, it's different for every person, right? So a lot of people that I speak with, I go, hey, tell me about your day to day. And I'm listening for specific cues. So a lot of times people go like this. Well, I start my day at 7 and I get up and I meditate. And then I just go, okay, time out. Do you actually meditate every day? And if so, for how long? And if not, it's no big, this is a zero judge zone. And they're like, well, it's not every day. Okay, so how many days is it? Maybe it's like twice a week. Okay, is it really twice? I mean, like we just kind of play the game. Like, is it really twice? Because it's so easy when you are this busy to be like, no, I'm doing it like twice a week. And then they realize, actually, no, it's more like twice a month. But you're so in. And then we keep going throughout the day. And then I go, okay, so what, if there was one thing that we could solve that would make your life better, what would it be? And they're like, money. 99% of the time, that's what I hear. If we made more money, it would be better. And I go, okay, how much are you paying yourself right now? Like, that's the first question. Well, I pay myself X. Great. Where would the money be where you would feel more comfortable? And they say, why? Usually for most entrepreneurs that I talk to, their why number that would make them feel more comfortable is not that big of a difference. In the grand scheme, it feels that big because they may be paying themselves 70 right now. And they're like, man, if I can make 120, and I'm like, yeah, totally. Great. That's actually not that crazy based off what you've got. What we're talking about is like 6 sales. What we're talking about retaining, and so as we kind of walk through that together, I go, great, that's the number. That's the first thing that we're going to do is get you there. And I'm going to tell you the truth. You're going to get there and you're still going to have these problems. So here's what we're going to do next. But you have to give people what they want, so they want what you give. And what I actually have to give to people is the game is made up and the points don't matter. Like this whole thing that we call life, we get so serious about the game.
Sure.
And it's like when you're going to Thanksgiving and you play Monopoly and your uncle gets a little bit drunk and he takes the game so seriously that he starts like yelling at people and you're like, this is uncomfortable. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is different than playing the game sincerely, which is how my dad plays Monopoly. My dad cheats at Monopoly with his grandson, which is hilarious because he just wants to win, right? But the thing that's really great about playing sincerely instead of playing seriously is you get that it's still a game. So you're going to play the game because it's fun to play, and you're not going to take it seriously. Everything's fine. And so a lot of that I have to give, you have to give people what they want first. So help them get the money, and then we go, okay, now seriously, let's look at the rest of your life. And let's play the game sincerely and not too seriously.
Yep. Tell me, like, what does this look like for you now in terms of a daily routine, right? You're out in the wilderness, you live, by through waterfalls, which is really cool. What are you doing day to day to stay focused, but also be productive? What are you looking at these days instead of drinking coffee all the time, so you have to tip her down with some beer? How has that changed, and how are you doing this and being productive momentarily?
Yeah,
in real time.
So part of the way that I did that was I moved to the wild. Like we were living in the suburbs of Fort Worth, Texas. I lived on the same street as my brother, my sister-in-law, two nephews and a niece. And then my grandparents on my dad's side are still alive. So and then my parents lived with us part-time in our huge house for generations on the same street, 18 houses apart.
Wow.
But it was so much. There's a lot of studies that demonstrate that when you see if you look at a green living thing for 3 minutes, your cortisol levels drop. People that live in green.
How many minutes? What?
If you look at a green living for 3 minutes, your cortisol levels will drop.
Gosh, what?
If you live by water, that's a natural water source, and you look at water for 2 minutes, your cortisol levels drop. If there are all sorts of studies that show that people that live in green places have lower rates of diabetes, lower rates of heart disease, like down. Some of that is because of the less cortisol. Some of that is because green plants actually reflect infrared light. And so it's actually healing our bodies better. And so if you look at kind of this combination, oh, by the way, I live in such a remote place. There's moss that grows only in my area because the air is so pure. You can't find it 6 miles down the road. So I moved. That's one of the strategies. I moved to a pristine wilderness. The other strategy that I take is like, what do I need today? Do I just need a walk? Great, go for a walk. Do I need to go do an 11-mile hike and have some Washington State lettuce, on that walk and enjoy it? Great, let's go do an 11-mile hike to the hidden waterfall with my dog. That sounds fantastic, and I'm going to take 6 hours to do it. I'm going to go slow. It's going to be fabulous. Hopefully I don't see a cougar on the way. And then other times it's like, man, I've got a sauna. We've got a hot tub. I do cold plunges in the river. I lift. Like I love to lift weights. It's one of my favorite things. So for me, it's going, hey, what do I need today? And then other times just giving myself permission. Like, dude, I'm exhausted. If I get exhausted in the afternoon, I just go take a nap. Like one of the best things that you can do for your body is take a nap. So if I don't have meetings scheduled, I'll just block it off the same day and I'll be like, hey, I'm out for an hour. I'll nap, I'll meditate, I'll read. There's a lot. There's also a lot that shows, this is not great for the three of us because here we are talking to each other on a screen. There's a lot of evidence. It's anecdotal. It's still being studied at the moment. However, the anecdotal stuff is really powerful. That when you look at screens, your cortisol levels increase and your memory decreases. And so there are people that have taken fasts from screens. They've gone back to flip phones to avoid any sort of thing like that. And their memory goes from being like in the 40th percentile for all humans to being in the top 1% for all humans after not looking at screens for 100 days. So some of this is just understanding some of the science behind modern living. And some of it is also being intuitive a bit with what you mentally, physically, spiritually are needing right now in this moment, and just going, yeah, got it, cool, let me go take care of myself, and not judging for that at all, not being like, oh, you should be no, there's no should be. What's the next thing? Because if I'm fully centered and if I'm fully present, I show up differently for the people that rely on me for work. So great, let's do that.
100%. So what does the future look like for you in terms of, business and balancing growth and all of that, and your overall well-being and moving forward?
Yeah. So right now, I bought into Finch at the end of the year, and I love what we're up to here. We're trying to provide e-commerce brands with a full service offering, and we're starting to build out like this media group that we want to educate and entertain and inform before we ask for people's money. What a crazy idea. And we think that there are so many, I've had so many conversations with Fortune 50 CMOs and local coffee shop owners. And what I've found is that no matter where you're at in the spectrum, no marketer has any idea what the hell they're doing. Fortune 50 CMO that you're like, ooh, they've got it figured out. Brands that everyone would know that I've worked with and talked to those people, they have no clue. And the coffee shop owner may just be a better marketer at a less scalable business. And it's true, like it's just valid and true. So one of the things that we want to do is, because I've owned so many small businesses now, you learn to be scrappy, which is not something that big organizations have in their DNA, but they want to, because they intrinsically know that there's waste. They intrinsically know that there's something that they could be cutting. And a lot of times what big organizations do is, because they can't pinpoint it, they actually cut in the wrong spots haphazardly, like it's a spreadsheet without much detail involved, and it causes harm to the organization. And so for me, it's like, we want to create enough material around helping e-commerce brands actually figure out how to run their business in an effective way, that small businesses can become medium-sized businesses, and medium-sized businesses can become large businesses. Because honestly, I think that that's where the action's at, is in the small business space. And so anyways, long story short, I love what I'm doing with Finch. Really believe in democratizing my experiences and the wisdom that I've been able to gather through all the experiences that I've had. And I'm like 1000% pro entrepreneurs and business ownership. I really believe that that's how we right a lot of things that are plaguing us in the United States right now.
I have a question regarding, you mentioned, so is it e-commerce as in everything, or is it just the marketing aspect of e-commerce?
So right now we're just focusing on digital advertising and SEO, because that's the skill set that we have intrinsically on the team. That being said, the game here, man, like we want to go way beyond that. So like some of the conversations that we've been having with some of our clients lately, they're having a hard time negotiating with Amazon in Germany, in Austria, because in other places around the globe, it's not like Amazon's one unit. They actually function within country boundaries really solidly. So what you're doing is you're negotiating specific deals. We want to be able to help brands with that. Well, another thing that we've been experiencing is logistics. E-com brands are struggling with logistics and sourcing and materials, even ethical sourcing. So there's like a way to think about e-commerce solutions where we want to be a full suite, not just in the marketing and advertising space. Of course, that's great. We want to do more of that. We also want to continue to expand that to be, when you think of e-commerce, you think of Finch. You go, man, they're going to have great free materials, great paid materials, and we're going to have an experience where we get to engage with a number of experts that can help us across the board in e-commerce. And that's really what we're looking to help solve.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I know when I first got started, I had to, I'm over here, 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 I'm pulling over here, pulling over here. I'm testing this and doing this, and it was really hard to find a lot of, I mean, trial and error. But that would have been great to have one place that I could go and just like everything's in one beautiful funnel. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Do you
Yep.
guys do, is this
Eric's
email
about to get
marketing
back
too?
into e-commerce again. He's like, all
I
right, I'm gonna.
could. It's one of those things that's in my bucket box, But is like email marketing stuff. I guess that's a I don't have a lot
It's
of
some,
experience there, but
so I have a tremendous amount of experience in email marketing. It's not something that Finch currently does, but it is something that we want to add. Email marketing, one of the things that I worked with with a client recently. This is fun to share for people that are listening. I did this meta analysis for a client of ours that she's running ads with us, and she's like, I just don't feel like we're getting enough with emails. And I was like, let me take a look. I'd love to help. Let me see if I can help. So I went through and I started looking at her Klaviyo, and I just pulled something together really fast. I said, I noticed something. When you run a sale or you're trying to sell a product, hey, she sells high-end chocolate. Hey, it's Thanksgiving, try out our chocolate, right? Or whatever. It's Valentine's Day, buy this for your sweetheart. She'd make 150, $200 from that email. If it was a buy one, get one, same sort of deal, right? Like it was nothing prolific. But then there were these emails, and they were always the outliers when I looked at this. There were these emails where she would tell stories about when she was going to Costa Rica to meet with the farmers that farm and make the cacao, and how it's ethically sourced, and how it's not just a living wage, it's above living wage. They get compensated for their work. And she took her mom with her and took these photos. That email made the brand $1,600.
wow.
Then I started to go back.
Dang.
And every time that she told stories, it was like she was making $1,100 on average every time that she wrote a story in an email versus
do more of those.
just go buy things. So just go tell stories. And that's a thing that you can also take into your digital advertising as well. We've done that with her too there. And she's seeing record sales because she's starting to tell stories instead of just selling products.
Very nice.
Huh.
So are you
That's
guys
cool.
only e-commerce, or do you do services too?
We do services as well. We just don't target those people with our marketing efforts necessarily, but they certainly do come through. And we've had some really great success with a number of lead gen service type businesses to get that going and where we want it to be.
Very cool. Also, I just remember you mentioned you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Is it something you want to share?
Sure, yeah. So it's coming out in May. The exact date is still TBD, but it's called The Marketer's Mind, and it actually is a collection of musings about marketing, and then also stories from Fortune 50 CMOs and small coffee shop owners, and the nuggets that I've had over the past 20 years interacting with all those kinds of people. And there's some fun stories of things that I've done as well that have been just campaigns, and it's a fun playground. And the reason why I wrote it is because before I sold the last few firms back in 2023, I was having a conversation with my number two, and I said, hey, what are some of the most impactful things that I taught you, like that you learned from me? And so she started to recount some things, and they were not the things that I thought that she was going to say
for sure.
So then that kind of like sent me down a rabbit trail of like, hey, asking other staff members, what has stuck out to you from our conversations, from our interactions, from our trainings? And it was really, really interesting. But then I also wanted to create this book because there's so many people that call themselves marketers professionally, like that's their profession. They have clients, they're marketers, they work in-house, they're a marketer, and they have no idea what they're doing. And I just see it all the time. And it's like, we actually need to make marketers better than they are now. And in order to do that, they don't need information. We are information rich and we are wisdom poor. And this book
Mm-hmm.
is just wisdom, wisdom, wisdom.
Well, I
That's
can't wait to
awesome.
pick up a copy.
You said the
Where can we
marketer's
go to like
mind.
follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media. My handle is at realdval, RealDVAL. I'm active on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Dave Valentine on LinkedIn. And then, if your listeners are interested, I'm down to offer a freebie, which is I'll give them some free consulting for 30 minutes. Drop the name of the podcast in the
Nice.
headline of the email. Hit me up, dave.valentine@finch.com. I'll be happy to give them a 30-minute free consultation where literally I just tell you this is what I would do if it were me and I were you. And then if you want to work with me, great. And if you don't want to work with us, great. And I hope that you crush it either way. So that's a fun
Awesome.
little offer to everybody that's listening.
We will definitely throw that in the show notes for sure. That's fantastic.
We might take you up on it.
I was just going to say, I was like, well, you might get an email from
you're
Clean
both
Space
welcome.
here tomorrow.
I love it.
For sure. Hey, Dave, I have one more question because I was curious about this, and I just remembered, read in your bio that you like to merge unconventional marketing with conscious capitalism. Give me a blurb on that and what conscious capitalism means to you and how you would implement.
So there's this idea, right? In Hindi, you would say sabak.
Okay.
It's all one thing. So there's this scientific background to this as well, where they call it the science of fine tuning. And it's essentially this idea that there are so many interconnected systems, not just on our planet, but in our solar system and in our galaxy, that if one of those things was not there, life on this planet would not exist. And they're as subtle as you can imagine and as big as you can imagine. So conscious capitalism is this understanding that what you and I do really automatically affects everybody else. And so the ways that you do conscious capitalism is you think about, okay, what does this mean for the people that I'm working with? What does this mean for the planet? And how is this providing a good or service that's ultimately for the benefit of both?
Yeah.
And sometimes people confuse conscious capitalism with like being a pushover. No, it's still capitalism.
Sure. Yep.
I've hired my family, I've hired my college roommates, and I've told them all the same thing. I'm like, look, you're either going to quit or I'm going to fire you. No job is forever. So if we can't do Thanksgiving, if we can't hang out,
yeah,
don't come work for me.
For sure.
And it's reframing what a job is and what a job isn't. And it's like, hey, this is a job. Everybody gets all weird about it. They're like, well, if I get fired, then you're saying that you don't love me. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No, it just means you're not right for this job. I actually believe that everybody has a vital role to play. And your role may not be at this company at this time, but this other company or this other opportunity, or like they need you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're over here, I'm actually keeping you from the thing that you're going to do so well. Conscious capitalism is really just looking at the world and saying everybody's interconnected, the planet's interconnected, the universe is interconnected. So as we move through the world, can we actually create a more beautiful place as we go through and build commerce?
You could say capitalism with intentionality, maybe.
There you go.
Just using some thought. That's great. Well, that is a great way to land the plane. Dave, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I've certainly enjoyed hearing from you. And yeah, great insights. Hopefully down the road, we can chat some more. I'd love to follow up and
maybe get more specific too.
Yeah. Get things developed, continue to develop with Finch. And man, hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. And we hope to chat with you again soon.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave.
Peace.